I was kidnapped by an evil corporation, experimented on, and shrunk down. But thankfully, an undercover FBI agent has rescued me.
We're sending you to locate Dr. Tully as he has valuable information. Your codename is Chaotic.
In order to stop Director Smector and his evil corporation, I'm being sent to Dr. Tully's backyard.
Dr. Tully's last known location was his shrinking device. Find it, and hopefully you can find him.
And I have only 100 days to find Dr. Tully, gather the evidence, and put a stop to Director Smector. After a rough landing, I'm a little dazed from the drop. I gain my bearings, and I find my way out of the hole. I start collecting resources to later craft myself some tools. But before I can, my scabby pings me with a nearby signal. Could this be Dr. Tully? I make my way in that direction, and I come upon a field research station that looks abandoned, and I discover that I can scan resources, and I somehow learn to craft items from them. I craft a spear, and I search for more items to scan to learn as much as I can. I then craft myself an axe, and I set out to Tully's shrinking device, and once I get there, I investigate it. And after being the curious kid that I am, I press the button. Noticing that some of the tower's lasers are not quite working right, I set off to try and fix them. The first one was simple enough, as it was just the grass blocking it, so I cut it down. But the second unit was flickering. Might be a power issue. I make my way over there and I find little red mites chewing on the wires, and I quickly start finding and removing all of them. And I find and slay the last of the mites chewing on the wires. I make my way back and I turn on the machine to test it. Uh-oh, that doesn't sound too good. After hearing an explosion in the distance towards the oak tree, I set off to find what I broke and hope Dr. Tully wasn't dead because of me. When I walked right into a spider's territory and it chased me all the way to the tree. I gather up some acorn chunks and I carry on until I come across the scorched entrance. My bad. I make my way through what appears to be a big laboratory. So I hit a button that opens a door into the next room, where I see security footage of the other labs, also having power problems. This might have been my fault. I hope Dr. Tully's alright. I find a burgle unit lying on the ground. Weird that Dr. Tully has a fast food machine here. I press some buttons and I boot it back up.
Manager for this project. I am also a robot.
It explains that Dr. Tully is not here, and that it doesn't have the memory chips to know where Dr. Tully even is, and that I must go to each of the other labs and recover these Jada chips so we can find Dr. Tully's location. Burgle then tells me to put my bioscan into the computer so I can have access to this lab's subroutines. I have now gained the ability to spend raw science and to learn new things. This might be helpful. Knowing that I'm going to be here a while, I set off to make a camp, grabbing some much needed supplies along the way. I built up a place to sleep and a campfire to cook some food. And after eating a delicious looking aphid, I went to bed. Day 2 begins with gathering tons of resources, scanning them, and finding some much needed juice to quench my thirst. I continue harvesting and I even find a large amount of raw science on top of the juice box. I end up having a dangerously close call with an incredibly large orb weaver spider. And once it passes, I make a run for it in the opposite direction. I come across a little gnat flying around and I try to spear him out of the sky, but I have really bad aim. After a failed few attempts, it flies down to me. How nice of it. Back at camp, I add a few more things to build up and I hear a loud grumble from within the water. There's the fish somewhere. I craft a shovel and I start digging grubs out of the ground for their meat and their hide. I then craft a shield to better protect myself with, and I learn how to craft multi-story buildings at the Oak Lab. In the morning, I climb up the oak tree to set up my base of operations, somewhere high and hopefully out of reach of those spiders, because for some reason, I notice they're not climbing up. But I may be taking a huge risk with a mighty wolf spider den right underneath my chosen location. But I get started placing my first blueprints. First is the floors, and then I set up stairs leading down to the tree's roots. After placing a few grass blades, I get to killing some ants for their chitons so I can make their armor that I learned from scanning them. And it will give me the strength of an ant and allow me to carry more grass and weed stems at once. As I'm getting into the groove of building, I get ambushed, and I run as fast as I possibly can. And once I am safe, I get back to work, and once the floor is finished, I place down some storage and a new place to sleep. I start off the day by moving all of my camp supplies to my new treehouse, and I begin placing down everything I'll need to build. After that, I make my way under the tree and I sneak my way past some sleeping wolf spiders so I can get some brittle quartzite. This was a terrifying experience, but I really need those rocks. After surviving walking through Death's home, I continue building up my tools before taking a dip into the pond so I can search for lily pads and algae, and after scanning them, I pick up a new quest or two. I carry on through the night, crafting smoothies and a new dagger to help me hunt down water boatmen, and to harvest eelgrass so I can make water flippers and other scuba type gear, as one of the labs I'll need to find is in this pond somewhere. I have a close call with the koi fish, but thankfully it didn't see me. I head back to the lab and I scan my new resources and I set out to find some clay to finish building some other things. I start off the day by watching a giant orb weaver patrol my home, and I take my new scuba gear and I set off to find the pond lab to retrieve one of Burgle's memory chips. And I swim into this giant cavern under the pond, where I find a sunken Rex. Hey Nat, is that you? I also find some sunken bones and some koi scales. I gather up as many as I can find and I explore deeper into the cavern. I see what looks like a lab, but it's heavily damaged. I enter hoping there might be some air there, but I come across a bioterminal. The door opens and thankfully I come up into a dry lab. I move through and I run into another robot, but this one doesn't seem friendly like Burgle is. I run away and I dive back into the water and I scoop up some free resources. And I leave to go get better gear so I can fight that robot. Unfortunately though, on my way out, Mr. Koi Fish spotted me. Thankfully, I make it safely out of the water and I return to the Oak Lab to scan my new bounty, where I learn new scuba and even more powerful armor. Day 9 starts off incredibly well as I get spotted by a large, angry orb weaver. Phew, good thing they can't climb. I head to the pop can so I can get something to drink, and I discover that an ant has been trapped in the can, and I help it get out of the can. And I move on to see a giant chrometa just chilling. I travel into the anthill, hoping to add to my chitin stockpile. I end up coming across a giant soldier ant, and we battle it out for a while, putting my blocking skills to the test. After it goes down, I venture deeper into the colony and I come across more soldier boys. And I retreat and I go and pick on something that's not quite my own size. I take their parts so I can finish crafting up a spinning wheel to make rope easier. The next morning, I put my spinning wheels to work and I begin setting up an upgraded floor plan with weeds so I can bulk up my floor strength, just in case those spiders learn to fly. After waiting a bit, I get back to work and I install all the parts, but there is a spider relentlessly trying to get up. So I bail to a safe distance to assess the situation. I decide it might be best to leave for a while and let it calm down. I hunt some more ants and then I stumble upon some larvae. They are aggressive little ugly things. Curious as to what I could craft from them, I start luring them away and culling them for their parts. Hoping that my wolf spider friend has calmed down, I cut down some dandelions and I head home, only to find that it hasn't calmed down yet. I wait around and just like that, it jumps down and leaves. I head into the Oak Lab and I scan my new items. And I learn and craft a new larva blade before upgrading my armor's defense with marble plating. On day 11, I begin crafting up some much needed bandages, grab some breakfast, and I head out to see if I can find the Hedge Lab and Burgle's memory chip. I end up finding a stick that leads up into the trees and I follow it up to a field station where there's a tape left by Dr. Tully, though it sounds like it was recorded a while ago.
I thought hiding these lab units in the hedge would provide a bit of protection from my rampaging children.
The path leads me to a zip line, but before I can take it, I have to deal with some rampant baby spiders. At the end of the line, I see some raw science, and above that, a door. I cautiously enter, and I see some robots, and I remember the ones in the pollen lab that pushed me out before. But I'm a lot better prepared this time around. I find another old tape and I make my way into another room with a giant lever. So I pull it, of course.
Scabby, surveyor connection established. Use survey stations to scan for analyzed material.
This activated a survey network dish to help me locate materials around the yard. This will help a lot. Unfortunately, no chip for Burgle here, so I head deeper into the hedge, fighting spiderlings along the way until I come across another building, finding some food and materials and another Tully tape. This man sure complains a lot. I carry on, picking up a dandelion tuft and ziplining even further in, where I come across a flying disc, and I follow a stick up to a hole. After realizing that the spider that made this must be massive, I got the hell out of there. And I carried on, finding another zip line into a hole in the lab below. I find some spiderlings that are now calling this their home, and I evict them before moving even further into the hedge, where it looks like I'm finally at the lab. And it's massive! After one final zip line into the lab, I find a bioscanner and I enable the door override. But the power grid control appears to need a password to gain access. I see a note on the window that says password, but pieces of it must be missing. After unjamming the door, I get ambushed by some squatters. It was a tough fight, but I managed to give them their eviction notice. And after clearing out another squatter, I find a piece of paper with what I'm hoping is a chunk of the password. I attempt to move on to a lower level, but I get berry blocked for a moment. And after that, I find another piece of the password. After removing some more blockage, I found some more robotic defenders. My little dagger's just not the right tool for these guys, so I switch to my axe and I continue moving up the lab where I come across a resource storage room filled with lots of goodies. I zip down and I see an open hatch on the roof and I jump in where I find another piece of the password. I head back to the main computer hoping it's enough, but I'm still missing at least one more piece. And I go through door after door, trying to find where it is. And then I realize that there's one more zip line that I missed, and I head down it, and I come face to face with another robot, and I charge in. Haha, oops. I climb back up and I go for round 2, and after destroying the robot, I find the last piece of the password. I head back and I enter it in, and the door opens up. And I find the first of Burgle's memory chips. Hopefully, this will have what I need. I made it back home early in the morning of day 12, and I deposited my loot, and I crafted and upgraded things I needed. And then I went off to go see Burgle, and after giving Burgle his memory chip, it informed me that this had a piece of the embiggening recipe, and I'll need to go to the other labs to get the rest of it. After that, I learned that there's a hole in the lab going underneath the oak tree that leads to an ant colony. Realizing that I'm no match for 3 soldier ants, I turned around when some raw science caught my attention. And I noticed that there's more areas to check out, and then I found this hole that looked like it went deep underground. I'll have to check that out later. I headed down a tunnel. Realizing it went into the ant colony as well, I backtracked, and curiosity took hold, and I swam into that hole. Realizing I wasn't able to swim this, I turned around to head back out. But I was stuck, and I began to panic. And I swam further into the hole when I started to drown.
Chaotic, your life signs are erratic. Chaotic! Chaotic! Quick, activate Omega Protocol, send in SEAL Team Claw, and get him out of there!
I awakened back at my base, dazed and confused.
How's it going, Sleepyhead? You had a close call there. The team almost never made it to you in time. Although they saved you, your stuff, however, was dropped, and you will have to recover it. And I suggest you take some scuba this time.
I gather up my scuba gear and I head back into the lab. I swim into the hole and I find my backpack. And since I had plenty of air left, I headed further in. Trying to find a way out onto the other side, my oxygen started getting low again. And as I see the light at the end of the tunnel, it started going dark.
Oh, not again! Chaotic! Quick, turn them around! Hold on, Chaotic, they're not far!
I wake back up on my platform, realizing that I messed up once again. Thankfully, Agent Lapurr was able to save my stupid butt. I return and grab my backpack once more. Hopefully, she won't have to call in the SEAL team to save me anymore. And since I was already in my scuba gear, I headed back to the pond lab, where I ended up fighting some bell spiders. And I can't believe these dang spiders are here too. After dealing with the 8-legged swimmy freaks, I swim up into the lab and I notice a switch. And you can bet I am going to flip it. I head into the room and I swap out my gear and I begin to fight the battle bot. After it's down, I notice the door is still locked, and after checking the power, I see that 3 lights are still out. I remember seeing some switches outside, so I head back out to investigate. That appeared to do something. 1 down, 2 more to go. I see an opening on one of the sunken modules, and I swim on in where I find a dead body. Hoping it wasn't Dr. Tully, I checked the remains, and thankfully it was some guy named Dr. Spencer. Wait, wasn't he working for Dr. Smector? Is Smector trying to get to Tully first? Well, nothing can be done about it for now. I activate the last power switch and I head back up to the lab, where I notice that a hatch opened up. I explore around and I see a computer behind the glass, and I'm forced to take a broken water path around to the other side. I find another tape from Dr. Tully, and he appears to be suffering ill effects from repeated shrinking. Hopefully this is something I'm immune to. After activating the computer, there appears to be 1 unit not activating, and I make my way back to the room with the hatch. And I find that the room has been overrun by killer robots, and I'm forced to do battle once again. After coming out on the other side victorious, I work my way up into a large room filled with computers and machines, and I see a spiral staircase that wraps around to what appears to be a big giant dome, with plants growing along the edge. At the top, I find another burgle chip and a computer, so I activate it, and it begins opening up the dome. I then begin gathering up the plants called muscle sprouts. These may come in handy later, and I make my way back up to the Oak Lab to give Burgle his memory chip. So far, all these memory chips only contain information about the embiggening process and not Dr. Tully's location. Well, that was a lot for one day. I head back to the platform, craft up some new weapons, and I head back into the water tunnel underneath the oak tree to grab some floating orbs I seen earlier. It was something called a milk molar, and it gave me this tingling sensation as I picked it up. Moving deeper, I find a golden one as well, and it gave me an even bigger tingle. I make my way out safe and sound, and Agent Lapurr must be furious I went back in there. I carried on looking for even more of these molars in the water. There's something really addicting about them. But in the end, all I found was a dead-end lab that requires a keycard, and only 1 more molar. I return home and set up some moisture collectors and do some other things around the base. I see some dastardly mosquitoes, and normally I would just slap them dead, but they're much bigger than I am right now. I pull one away from the group and I begin to whittle it down, and after I get it down, I deal with the other ones one at a time, and that was very satisfying to do. I make my way back to the Oak Lab and I scan up my newfound crafting materials, and I notice at the terminal I can use it to activate Mega Milk Molar powers, and I gain more to my strength. I craft a new mosquito needle sword and I power it up before heading to bed to get some well-earned shut-eye. After having a weird dream of my shrinking, I wake up so thirsty I could die. And I head off to get some sweet pop, and I begin exploring around, debating on my next course of action. As I do that, I hunt down some mites for one of Burgle's side missions, and I come across a weird infected larvae, and that cannot be good. I come across a very large and active anthill, and they are attacking a ladybug. And since Burgle needs me to kill off some soldier ants, I join in for some easy kills. And once the ladybug is near death, I finish it off too. I then fight my way into the ant's home, and after finding nothing of immediate value, I make my way back out, and I find a giant stink bug lounging in the sun. And in chaotic fashion, I went in and I poked it. And I quickly realized that was a very bad idea. After a tense few minutes of some back and forth, I finally slay the stinky beast, and I collect my hard-earned prize so I can craft a tier 2 hammer. But I'm still missing a couple of parts from another species of bug. After killing a few more ants, I headed home, ready to hit the hay once again, only to have another strange dream. I start off the day by getting more rope made up and upgrading my armor a little bit more, and I begin the long process of finishing up my floor. First, I'm gonna have to deal with a fully grown up orb weaver and its precious children. Blow after blow, I'm starting to succumb to its deadly attacks. As I'm running low on healing items, I find myself with two choices: run or berserk mode it until it dies. After placing a few weed stems, I head off in search of those bombardier beetles so I can finish off my new hammer and maybe even upgrade my axe. And after playing Dodge That Splat, I managed to take it down too, before heading off to test my gas mask versus the stink bugs. And they are so much easier to kill with that mask on, I'll tell you that right now, bud. Back at home, I place a few more weeds and I craft up my new tools, allowing me to harvest the bigger weeds for their stems. I continue chopping and building until I notice that I've attracted the attention of another wolf spider. And being unsure of what I could even do, I was stuck helplessly staring, waiting for it to leave, until I decided that I had no choice but to somehow lure it away. After a moment, it finally notices me, and I bail into the oak lab, thinking I managed to outsmart it. I come back out to find it waiting for me. I try to run back into the oak lab, but it quickly blocks my escape, and I'm forced to try and push this hulking spider back. And I'm doing great, until it power attacks me and it gets a venomous bite on me.
Chaotic, you've been envenomed. You need to get out of there. Chaotic? Chaotic! Send them in again! He doesn't have much time!
I come to up above in my base, realizing I was once again saved by Agent Lapurr. I cautiously climb down to get my stuff, and then I get back to work. And on the morning of day 17, I decide to add a zipline of my own, so I can easily get down when I want to. But first, I finish off the floors on both levels. I then start placing the blueprints for my walls and organizing the layout a little bit before placing my second floor. And then I finish up the zip line. And now it's time for the long haul of gathering and placing all the stems needed for my walls and the second floor. Nice. Bored of building, I decided I needed some other resources so I can finish off some other things. I set off to collect more boiling glands, and after using a field station to track them down, I made my way to more bombardier beetles. I recruit a ladybug to help me as backup, and I charge in. I managed to get one down while the ladybug got the other one down, and we teamed up to finish off the third. Now that our alliance was finished, I killed that ladybug too. And once I had my stuff, I made my way back up to the hedge lab so I could grab some sweet milk molars. And I traveled up and along Dr. Tully's house so I could see if I could find more. And I wandered into a hazardous mist, but thankfully I got my gas mask on hand so I can breathe. And I discovered a mixer. Not sure what that is, but I bet Dr. Tully made it. I carried on under the deck until I reached their garbage. And there's a swarm of black ants here. That black ant lab can't be far. And I try to take on the swarm. And I managed to take down a few of them as I worked my way around the garbage bags until I find a field station with some notes to what may have happened to Dr. Tully. I headed back to base and deposited my loot, and I grabbed my scuba and I went diving for some more scales and bones. When I came across a hole in the ground, and I went in to investigate. After battling a few spiders, and after looking around, I find a key. Thinking this might be the key that I need for that treasure chest I seen the last time I was down here. And I was right as it popped open when I inserted it. There was a mega milk molar and a Burgle memory chip. I return to Burgle and give him his memory chip. And it turns out I have to pay for his new recipes. Thanks, bud. I then set out to find the entrance to that black ant lab, and after searching my way through the garbage, I came across a black ant hill. That might be it. After beating down the guards, I went on inside. And yeah, they were not happy about that. I fight my way down, killing dozens of ants, until I come into a passageway with man-made lights. I must be getting close. I follow them up until I come into a large cavern with a lab perched up high. I check the doors, but they are all locked. I make my way around and I see the tunnel had collapsed and a huge stone fell on the lab. And it would appear that it's brittle enough that if I had some explosives, I could blow it up. I just don't have any explosives. I look around, but I'm unable to find anything to aid me, so I leave and I head back into the haze to see if I can find that lab instead. But I end up coming across a bunch of infected bugs that explode. Interesting. Wonder if I can use their infection as an explosive. So I start gathering all the fungal growth I can find, and I end up stumbling upon the haze lab, requiring me to blow my way in. As I'm looking around, I come across a grave. Dan the hamster. Rest in peace, little guy. I find a field station and I scan the fungal growth. I was correct in my assumption. Now I need ant eggs to finish the explosive, and I'll be able to continue on my search for Dr. Tully. So I head to the Red Ant Hill to see if I can find some eggs. And I wasn't long finding them. I headed back to the Oak Lab to scan them before making 4 bombs. That should be enough for now. Next morning I changed my mind and I went back to the Red Ant Hill to gather some more eggs. I found another one of Burgle's memory chips, as well as another dead body. I doubt this is Dr. Tully though. I headed back out and I make a new workbench so I can craft the eggs there.
Dude, I forgot the back at home.
So I ended up running back home to craft them, and I crafted another 4 bombs. And after that I decided I was tired and I needed a nap. I got up, ready to go, but I was a little too ready and I ran straight into a wolf spider. And I had to run, but it caught up to me very quickly and I was forced to block its attacks. But some managed to get through. And I was envenomed once again. I kept backing up, hoping the pond wasn't too far away. And thankfully, I fell into the water with that nasty spider staring down at me.
I see you managed to escape that spider. I had Bravo Team 7 on standby just in case. But since I got you on the line, we have discovered why the haze is, well, hazy. There's a hole punctured at the top of the canister. Block it off to clear up the nasty gas.
I headed into the haze with my new shovel so I could find some gum and plug that hole. Should make life easier, right?
Look at that, we fixed it.
And after sealing the hole, I head to the haze lab and I blow open the door.
In we go.
And I begin making my way inside. And I find a whiteboard, and things are not looking good for Dr. Tully. And I'm not that far behind him myself though I haven't felt any ill effects yet. I carry on and I find my way to another dead guy, also from Ominous. He looks like he really messed up. He had a picture of a castle though, looks like the one that I can see from my base in the upper yard. Thinking nothing of it, I headed deeper into the lab.
Oh no. Oh no, it's locked.
That doesn't look good the way it's blocked.
We're doing this.
You will have to fight your way through.
Ow.
Hey!
Shit. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Oh, yeah.
After getting out of this explosive situation, I head into the final room, and I discover that Dr. Tully created this weird infection, and he punctured the hole in the canister to kill it off. I might have made a mistake closing that. But I learned that Dr. Tully's next location is in fact the Black Ant Lab. Hopefully I'm gonna find him there, and I can get out of this nightmare. But first, I must get home and get some sleep. I awaken and I head straight to Burgle to give it the memory chip. One more ingredient down for the embiggening cocktail, and I learn that there's another machine needed for it somewhere in the yard too. I start setting up a forge at home when I suddenly hear a strange sound coming from under my base. And I set off to investigate it, and to my horror, I find an infected wolf spider. And that right there is karma in action, and with that I decided I needed to finish my roof to prevent that thing from jumping on in. Though, if it has explosive qualities like the others, I doubt a roof will make a difference. But I get to work anyways, and by the end of the day I take a well-deserved nap only to have another dream. My PTSD is only gonna get worse from this. And I'm 25% of the way through my allotted time. I'll have to hurry this up. But between the giant spiders, regular and infected, this is gonna be a challenge and a half. But I'll push through and I'll get this base done so I can be slightly safer. And by day 28, I was finally finished building my base. I even added a recreation room upstairs where I can chill and play some basketball. In the morning, I head to the Oak Lab, and suddenly, the horns of war begin to blare. The red ants are on the move and they want revenge. Makes sense. I did steal their babies to make bombs. The ants, however, have seemed to have gotten lost, trying to find me. I end up finding them at the bottom of the stairs, and after defeating them, I remove the rest of the stairs, and I do this and that for the rest of the day. The following morning, I set my sights for the Black Ant Lab, and I make my way there, and I set up a small outpost for just in case, as I have no idea what I'll find in this lab. Still needing a few things to finish off the outpost, I set out to search for them, only to come across a shovel being held up by some very brittle rocks. I climbed my way up and worked my way around, and I got a little too close to a massive bumblebee.
What the f did I do to you? I'm just a traveling salesman. Don't mind me. No. Look, I will kill you. All right. Did you just give up?
Chaotic, no, not again! Send the medic! Yes, just leave him up there, he's running out of time!
After jumping down and recovering my stuff, I worked my way back up to the castle with a little more knowledge on my side. Bees are brutal and I never mess with them. But up here, I have a great vantage point to see the whole yard. I take a look around me and I misstep right into a crack. I embarrassingly have to climb my way back up. As darkness falls, I make my way into the maze, and at the end I find a chest requiring a key. It can't be too far away though. I'll have to keep my eye out for nooks and cracks that it could possibly be in. And after some exploring and getting some revenge of my own, I jumped down and got what I needed, and I headed back to my outpost. And then I headed back towards the picnic table, where I found a broken pipe, and I went on inside, and ended up leading me back into the haze lab. But I did find a secret pathway that gave me some more raw science, and a mega milk molar. And with some more exploring, I find another broken pipe. And with a find like that, I headed back up to the table. Once I got there, I opened up the chest for a mega milk molar, and another memory chip. But this bee wasn't too happy about me opening it. After I made my way back to the Black Ant Hill and made my way inside, I follow the path down and I battle some very angry soldier ants when I come across an unlocked door that led me to a super chip protocol folder. This will come in handy as evidence, I hope. I make my way up to the crushed laboratory unit and I place down the bomb so I can gain access. I find a tape and discover that the mixers I've been seeing around the yard are some sort of experiment and that they agitate the insects around them. Good to know, I guess. I see another computer override and I mash the keys, hoping to unlock something. I journey through the lab, looting what I can and unlocking the next chambers. But unfortunately, as I was nearing a huge gateway, I was beaten back by soldier ants. Low on resources and my gear nearly broken, I was forced to retreat to restock up and repair everything. After I had done that, it was late enough, so I figured it was also a good idea to rest up. In the morning, I headed back to the Black Ant Lab, hoping that Dr. Tully has sealed himself behind that huge blast door. Once I arrive back, I find a button and I push it. And once the blast doors open up, I see some sort of power station. But there's some doors over there, so maybe Dr. Tully's behind that. I jump down and I see that there's a weak point in the glass, but I'm being followed by some very angry ants. I avoid them and I drop a bomb, and I blast my way in, and I ended up tripping an intruder alert. I raced to the computer to end the alert, but that tripped a security protocol, and management is on its way. A Karen's worst nightmare. Robots come flooding in, including a very big one, along with an ant soldier that followed me in. This is not my lucky day, or is it? The soldier ant turns its attention to the big robot. I have some backup, and while the ant has it distracted, I attack from the rear. But sadly, my backup died pretty quick on me, and I'm forced to fight the rest of this battle alone. The fight's going great when suddenly the assistant manager decides it's time to up its game.
Oh,
And it brings out laser beams to help take me down. And I'm forced to hide behind these pillars. I'm ducking and weaving and I'm getting in some good hits, when the pillars that I'm using to hide behind light up with energy, forcing me out into the open. This thing is definitely not playing fair.
ah, ugly. Mother. Ah, die! Holy 404 management not found.
After claiming victory, I carry on and I search for Dr. Tully, or at least evidence of him. I'm starting to wonder if he's even alive.
Oh wow, he's looking right.
After collecting some information, I head up and I find myself outside the lab. I continue on towards home when I'm passed by Dan the hamster's grave. I see some raw science in the hole and I carelessly jump in. And I quickly realize my mistake, and I'm forced to jump even further in. I battle spiderlings trying to find a way out, but the exit is blocked by another wolf spider. So I turn around hoping for a second exit. I find and kill an orb weaver and enter into a giant chamber with Dan's remains, but no exit, forcing me to head out the front door.
Yeah, f***ing knew it. No, 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 no.
After surviving that ordeal, I head back to the Oak Lab to speak to Burgle again. And we are still missing one ingredient for the cocktail. And Burgle finally remembers how to find Dr. Tully. Now we got to find our way to the upper yard.
Prototype, take
That's
over.
our goal right there. We got to get to that chair.
I went all the way to the hedge and I worked my way along the wall, finding this and that and fighting things along the way.
Mega Milk Molar.
Until I came upon a crack more than halfway across the wall that leads up to a brittle rock. And after blasting it, I make my way up to a new section of the yard, finding new types of bugs.
Bestiary. Didn't expect to see a little green beetle like you.
After fighting my way to the barbecue, I find it a little too hot to pass through. And with no other way up, I think I'm gonna have to find some new gear that gives some sort of heat resistance. But I managed to get some charcoal, and I set off for home and finished my forge. After baking a mushroom brick, I went to scan it and I learned an entirely new building set. After I awakened from yet another dream of Agent Lapurr helping me escape the lab, I set off, determined. I push through the heat and I get into the upper yard. And I run into a massive, angry beetle. And I am not able to fight that yet, so I run away.
Oh,
I come across a valley and I explore it for anything I can find that will help. I travel on and I climb up a bike to try and find my way up to Dr. Tully's chair. And as I'm searching for a way up, I come across a hollowed out plant with what appears to be mantis eggs. And I am nowhere near ready for a beast like that, and I quickly bail. I carry on and I see a woodpile, and remembering that I need termites to make the new tier 3 axe, I set off to find them. And once I found a way in, they were very hard to kill. So much so that even a few of them pushed me back out. And I'm forced to going back to finding a way up to Dr. Tully's chair, hoping he is still alive and not dead up there. I get myself to the other side of his chair, and I see no way down to it. Looks like I'm gonna have to jump across. Looks like I'm going to need a dandelion. Haha. I venture down into the yard again, and I look for a dandelion so I can get that tough. Once I have one, I make my way back up, and I jump across. Well, looks like I'm gonna have to upgrade my tools before I can even find out where Dr. Tully is. I head out to explore around a bit, and I come across a field of wires with raw science running through them, and a coffee machine at the top. I remember Burgle saying something about it a while back. I carry on and I come up to that castle to investigate why I found a photo earlier.
Taking a look.
But all I ended up finding was a new breed of mosquito. So I went back to base and I started planning on how to upgrade my gear. On day 38, I took a look as to what I could make, and it turns out that I'm nearly able to make the termite axe. A tier 3 weapon needed to harvest higher tier resources. And I set off to get the gunk I needed to craft it. And once it was made, I upgraded it as best I could, and I put it to the test by knocking down a burr plant and fighting some overgrown spiders. Nice, this was the upgrade I was needing. I made my way back to the picnic table to gather some wood splinters and to get to the sandbox. After walking around the edge to gain some intel, I tried to move inside. Realizing it's too hot in the sun, I had a thought that it might be more cooler in the shade. And I was correct.
You are one of them.
But I was quickly greeted by the locals, an antlion. Just what I was looking for. I'm gonna need a few of these to craft up that antlion armor. But I soon learned that I could get flung into the air by a surprise attack. Good thing I had that dandelion, and after slaying some countless antlions, I went for a swim around the sandcastle, and I found another treasure chest. I'm gonna have to find that key later too. I headed home and I crafted up and then upgraded my new antlion armor. I now need to put it to the test by facing down a wolf spider. And victory. These scary Harrys are no longer a threat to me. And now knowing how much time I'm going to have to spend in the upper yard, I decide to set up a new base of operations there, and I begin to build a new home. And once I was satisfied with how much I got built, I went on the lookout for my next needed resource, pupa hide. I even managed to get a drop on the scarab. Those speedy little guys are tough to catch. And then I went up to the shed to get some lint from the welcome mat so I can make my new floors. They will be so awesome when I make them. I went on to hunt for more burrs while I waited for the lint rope to be made. And after stocking up on some other supplies, I headed back to my new outpost and I began installing some floors, but my rope unfortunately didn't last very long. So I headed back to the woodpile so I could gather more wood splinters and termite parts. And that's when I came across something unexpected. The Termite King. That was one heck of a struggle. Looks like it was guarding another one of Burgle's memory chips. Once I made it back home, I crafted and upgraded an insect bow, made from the fangs of my least favorite spider. Fitting. The next morning I went down to give Burgle his memory chip, and then I proceeded to test my might against the sturdy roly-poly. And I wasn't long realizing I was outmatched, and I retreated to find some easier prey. After defeating a ladybird, I discovered another mixer unit and a new field station, increasing the range of my resource locator. I decided that I will need a new shield, but with 2 different tier 3 options, I really wasn't sure which one I would need. And after deciding I'm just gonna make both of them, I started hunting down the prey needed to make them, and I stumbled upon another spider den underneath the toolbox. And I quickly discovered it was a black widow spider. A highly venomous spider, one that I have no intention of fighting anytime soon. So I went back to hunting my shield parts when I discovered another mixer unit underneath the lawnmower. I started off day 45 by making some arrows, and then I headed back to the pond where I found another small lab with a left elf charm. Interesting. I was heading home when I ran into an orb weaver spider. And low on healing, I was doing alright, but then a wolf spider came around the corner. And I couldn't quite figure out how to use these new heal bosses.
Well, that's been a while. Hold on, Chaotic. We got you. Yeah, just put him in the nearby field station.
Oh boy, glad they're still paying attention. I gather my stuff and I head back to base to craft up some more healing. I can't believe I'm running low on that. I went to the Oak Lab to see what I could purchase, and when I was done, I headed back out. And an old friend had followed my scent trail and has me trapped inside. After it chases me down the hallway, it jumps into the ceiling and disappears. But not before leaving me a parting gift. Or 2.
Chaotic! Oh, that looks bad. Send the medic with him. Hopefully his face will be all right.
I cautiously return to get my stuff. I have no idea where the heck that thing is. Even though I hear it, I do not see it, and I'm not long getting out of there. The next morning, after killing some bombardier beetles, I finally figured out how to use that heal bossa. And yes, to say the least, it's messy. I moved back to the upper yard to retry and take down a roly-poly. But this time, I'm gonna do it at range with my new bow. And after a ton of arrows, it went down, unable to even get to me. I scanned up its parts and I learned a new armor. And that looks way tankier than my current gear. I then went hunting for both roly-polies and black ox beetles, though I did not win those fights easily.
You know it would help if you dodged?
I thought I lost you.
Dude, he died. Nice.
When I say dodged, I didn't mean fall off a cliff. Yeah, turn them around.
Taking Agent Lapurr's advice to heart, I managed to get a few more kills. And then I find a hole under a lid. Going inside, I find another ominous body. But that wasn't the best part. I came into the mother lode of milk molars. After that, I went back to the oak base and I built my new tier 3 hammer, and then I gave it a few upgrades. I started off day 48 by gathering all I needed to restock on smoothies, as I have been out for far too long. That upper yard is just brutal. I headed back there and I started gathering rust and anything else I could with my new hammer. I also stocked up on as much pupa hide as I could find, since it's so expensive to make leather. After preparing as much as I could, I went back to see if I could find Dr. Tully. But first, I get that much needed ingredient for the embiggening process. I open the compartment, add the battery, and listen to Dr. Tully's farewell.
Transferring biometric data. Wendell Tully. Audio file downloaded. Dr. Wendell Tully. Title. Goodbye.
Hello, my scabby-wearing friend. I do not know who you are or how you came by this message, but please tell them I tried. Tell Trudy, Thor, my little Sarah. The sun is setting on our yard and it brings back so many memories. Sitting in this chair, my favorite chair, my thinking chair. I fear this may be the last time I lay eyes on such a beautiful sight. I'm nearly out of time. My body shrivels more with each passing day. Perhaps in solitude, free from my family, from Burgle, and from Ominent. Perhaps I can finally find a cure to this damnable reasoning. I'll either find the answer or shrivel in the darkness below. To my lab, underneath the shed. This is Dr. Wendell Tully, signing off. Goodbye.
Am I too late? I don't know. I'll have to go to his shed lab to find out. But first I head back to Burgle to see what it may know about the shed lab. But that was a bust. I head back to my oak base and I start to craft my new armor. But I'm still shy a lot of pupa leather and some lint rope. So, using the scanner, I hunted down every last pupa I could find. That ended up leading me right into a fire ant colony. And it was huge, with tons of much needed marble and quartzite, plus a host of other things I need, including fire ant parts. Of course, after exploring it thoroughly, I carry on hunting down that pupa hide. Man, if only it wasn't so expensive. I return to my outpost and drop off my loot, and I proceed to go to the oak base to craft and upgrade my full roly-poly armor set. And once that was made, I headed to the Mordark Castle to collect some tiger mosquito parts so I could make a new sword. And after that, I explored around and I found another Black Widow spider den. And feeling confident in my new armor, I went in for the kill. And I wasn't long discovering that I was outmatched. Deciding to try ranged, I noticed she was stuck for a moment. I pull away for a moment so I can clean up her babies, and I noticed that she had fully healed. This was not good. I can hear Agent Lapurr already. I attempt to outmaneuver her, but she lost interest once I was far enough away from her nest, and she left me alone. I sneak back to get some of my arrows, and I climb a big plant just out of her range. Confused, she took my arrows to the face, and she wouldn't even move. Then I heard something big underneath me. And I had an idea. I jumped down and I introduced them to each other.
That's what we're talking about.
And as the two titans duked it out, I kept firing my arrows. And as victory was near, my new tanky friend succumbed to her venomous blows. But she was very low.
Come on, come on. Go down, you son of a... Yes! Yes!
And I managed to get in the final strike. I collected my arrows, and then I headed back to the lab to scan my prize. And after that, I headed back to the sandbox so I could find some more marble and other upgrade materials. And I found a lot, including a new lab. Though there wasn't much in it other than a drawing with a shovel that looked kind of like a clock. So after clearing out some antlion dens, I sat and I waited for the sun to come up. And as the sand heated up, I wasn't long hiding in what shade I could find. And I went back and forth trying to decipher the puzzle.
I don't get it. I really don't get it. I think it has something to do with the shade and the time, though.
I followed the shadow around until it gave a glare in the sand.
Got it. There it is. There it is.
And I dug out a new key. I run to the sandcastle moat, drinking some nasty water so I don't die from the thirst. And I swam to the chest that I found earlier.
Make a particularly deadly weapon. Salt Morningstar.
I restocked my smoothies and then I set out to investigate under the shed and hopefully find Dr. Tully. Or live or dead at this point. I make my way through the lab, gathering what I can, and then I find a door that leads into a large cavern with tons of dangerous bugs and spiders everywhere. I push on until I come across a deep hole, and I see a glowing purple object on the other side. But it doesn't appear to have a way to go straight to it. I climb down and I see a hole, but it's covered in webs. Not a good sign. I parkour my way over and I make my way inside. And then I get rushed by a bunch of mosquitoes. And then I suddenly notice that I've been envenomed. Looking down, I see black widow spiderlings gnawing at my feet. This is really not good. After dealing with them, I crawl down the tunnel and I see the mother. I try to sneak around her, but she locks onto me, and without an ox beetle, I'm in for one heck of a fight.
Calm the hell down. Thank you. Die, 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 die! Oh! I did it. I did it. Oh my god, I one-on-one to Black Widow. Oh my god. Holy hell was that? Why is there a bumblebee in here?
Once she is down, I move on and I find the source of a purple light. A laboratory. I make my way inside and I see a whiteboard. I make my way through the lab, hearing some strange noises. I find my way into a large room, filled with stuff that I don't even want to know about. As I'm listening to a tape of Dr. Tully ranting on, I see a hole in the wall, and that can't be good. What have you been up to, Dr. Tully? I flip a switch that opens a door in the distance. I make my way down the hall and through the door.
Oh yeah, this place looks. Oh god.
And I guess I'm going to have to fight that in order to find Dr. Tully. I climb into the ceiling and I find a hole and I jump down with the mant.
Ow! Oh sh. Holy.
Now that monstrosity is down, I find a button that opens the door into the next room, and I carry on.
You may have defeated my mant, but you and your ominous paymasters will never get their hands on the embiggening cocktail. I'll take that secret to my grave. To my grave. Knowing that you have followed my path right to me, right where I want you.
I have found him! He is alive! Well, mostly. Wait, is that gonna happen to me?
Well, here I am, Wendell Tully in all his glory.
I informed Dr. Tully of everything I've been through and that I need his help, not only to get bigger, but to take down Ominate. And he was very much on board with that idea. He tells me what the last ingredient is for the cocktail. It's grilled science. And he has it in the fridge. I get it, and we head out, but we are soon ambushed by a fire ant mind-controlled by Ominate. They have a new technology that controls bugs to do their bidding. And if they choose to make them bigger, they could cause some serious damage. With this new information, Dr. Tully and I meet up with Burgle, and they inform me that if Ominate were to use their mind control on two very rare subspecies, the Broodmother and the Mantis, we might be doomed if they manage to find them. And it looks like I'm gonna have to take them out first. Thankfully, Dr. Tully has some secret recipes hidden that I need to find in order to lure them out. And now I must prepare to fight titans amongst shrunken men. I return to my upper yard outpost to finish it off in case Ominent decides to attack. And over the next 4 days, I built, collected, and prepared to fight the Broodmother. And with Dr. Tully leading the way, we set off to find the recipe to attract the Broodmother. And we journeyed back to the hedge, and after traveling all the way back up to the lab and climbing my way up, we found a small office with the Broodmother BLT recipe. I will now be able to take down this massive spider and put a kink in Ominent's plans. From there, I went and I hunted the ingredients I needed down. The next couple of days I spent finishing my outpost and fully moving in. I then went and I took on a mixer and I hunted down everything I could to upgrade my gear and myself. And with all the traveling I've been doing, I decided to build a shortcut to my new headquarters. I then finally was able to cook up my BLT. I also learned that you can put pupa hide and berry chunks on a jerky rack, and it requires way less to make leather. I wish I figured that out sooner. Oh man. I then made my way to the Broodmother's lair. Remember that web-filled tunnel in the hedge? Yeah, that is where she lives.
Not scary at all. Yeah, look at everything that's dead in here.
I am seriously regretting my life decisions right now.
I know, me too, bud. We got this. Oh! Why aren't you parrying? Come on. Oh, yeah.
Ominent will be fuming to learn of this. I returned to the Oak Lab to scan her parts, and I learned some new armor and weapons. Those will be nice, I bet. But first, I'm going to need some more smoothies, and I head down to the pond to get more muscle sprouts. And once I'm back at HQ, I make and upgrade my new helmet.
Now we're talking, Pete. Look at you, bud.
I test out my helm by completing even more mixers for even more raw science. Dr. Tully has finally remembered where the next recipe is, but the catch is I have to find a sunken lab in the pond. And once I unlock it, I head to the stump in the upper yard, where there was a bit of an accident there when the tree fell over. And everything inside the lab is on its side. And I'm now forced to do my worst skill, parkour. But I make my way through the lab, one jump at a time, even if it takes 30 attempts to make that jump. Now that I retrieved a new chip for Burgle, I'm also able to make and upgrade new plating for my gear, and this is gonna be a huge help. I also realized that I forgot to grab the recipe for the mantis, so I had to go back to the stump lab. Turns out, other than the armor upgrade, I really didn't need to suffer through that parkour. Oh well, live and learn, I guess. I started to make up some cooling units and tons of food to put in them, and I carried on with collecting as much raw science and milk molars as I could find, though I wasn't always successful.
No! I broke it! Ah!
But I kept trying.
Come on! Oh my god! Jesus! Gonna blow! Everybody stand back! It's gonna blow! See, told you.
With all the mixers finished, and with nearly fully upgraded gear, I prepare to go fight the Mantis and prevent Ominent from getting to it first. It's time, and I make my way to the Mantis's lair, and I set out its favorite treat.
Oh. Ow. Oh. Ow. Oh. I just managed to barely dodge. Oh. Oh. Yeah. Got him.
Great job, Chaotic. I can't believe you managed to take out that Mantis. I've seen what they can do. Anyways, we have some intel on Ominet. They have a secret lab under the Morta Castle in the upper yard. Find it and gather any evidence so we can take Director Smector down.
With this new information on hand, I head to Castle Modark, and I'm unable to find a way over, so I'm forced to build a makeshift bridge. And once I was across, it's time to figure out where this grand evidence is, and I venture into its mouth. And I see a hole leading down, and I jump right in. We arrive at the door, and Dr. Tully contacts Burgle for some assistance.
Hello, this is Burgle Science Lab. Burgle speaking. Can I interest you in some grills?
Burgle, I need you to hack into an ominous security door for me.
Oh, Dr. Tully, at what? Hacking. Still hacking. I'm in.
Why, thank you, Burgle.
Once the door flies open, an orc fire ant bursts through to greet us. Well, I guess they know we are here. We work our way through the lab, seeing some of their experiments, and it leads us to an ominous looking room with a button in the center.
So the lab rats have finally reached the end of the maze. I hypothesized that adolescents would be resistant to the effects of reasoning. The young have incredibly strong immune systems, after all. Couple that with the intense hormonal growth, and I was pleased to learn that you are not only resistant, but immune to said syndrome. So you did find a cure because of the children you abducted. Oh, come now. Although I won't mind the fame, the power, the respect for Director Dalton Schmechter. Race to the profession, Dalton. Ha, ha, ha. The hypothesis was developed. The experiments were conducted. The results have been analyzed. Schmechter, you son of a... The conclusion concluded. All that remains is to take out the trash.
What? Oh god. Dick move. He decided to cheat a little bit. Oh, sit down, you son of a...
You did it! Bring us that data disk at all costs. It will have everything we need to bring Schmechter down. Speak with Dr. Tully and get that embiggening whatever it's called down, and we will see you on the other side.
Dr. Tully and I leave the compound, and we set off to begin the final leg of our journey. As I was preparing to get some things I'll need, I ran into an old nemesis. And well, its time is now over. A sad end to a sad creature. After doing some prep work, I headed to the Java-matic, and I hit the button, but there appears to be not enough power. And for the next problem, I was going to need some explosives in order to get inside. Dr. Tully was nice enough to tell me of his secret bomb arrow recipe he hid in the spare tire chest. And I just so have happened to have found the key a few weeks back on the wall. So I went to go and retrieve that blueprint. After making some explosive tipped arrows, I blew a hole into that coffee maker. I placed the embiggening cell, and I made my way to the top, and I filled it with all the ingredients. And I pressed the button.
Oh no, it looks like Omninet isn't going to let you get away so easily. Repel the attack and repair those power cells and set up some defenses. From what we can see, there's a whole bug army just waiting for you to start that machine.
After repelling the attack and repairing the power modules, I went back to my base and I started prepping for a long fight. Dr. Tully also informed me that he has a storage facility nearby to help in aiding in the defense. And for the next 5 days, I did nothing but gather and build the ultimate defense, taking countless resources and never once being distracted from my goals. And I built until it was 100% bug-proof. Nothing and nobody was going to stop me from getting home, and those ominous a-holes were going down.
Ah! Leave C alone! Almost there. Dude, there's a couple big bugs. Got it. We got it. We got it. We got it. Oh, no, you don't. We got this. Wow, we got it.
We did it! Dr. Tully and I held them at bay long enough for the concoction to complete. But Dr. Tully has to do some repairs. Oops.
It's still
So I spent the next 5 days doing this and that, knowing that I'll never come back to this tiny world. It hit me, and I spent every second remaining enjoying this wonderful little world. It's day 100. Dr. Tully says it's ready to go. I say goodbye to my upper yard headquarters, and I put my stuff away, and I set off for the embiggening platform, ready to go home.
We need to talk. I never thought I'd say this, but it's time to go home.
And with a flash, that was the end of the tiny adventure of a lifetime. At least that's what the local papers call it. It's hard to believe how much has happened since then. There were reporters, investigators, even the FBI got involved. They tried to keep a lid on all of it, but the whole story came out. About the kidnappings, about the dead teenagers, about Armin. Turns out, everyone did learn the name of Director Dalton Schmechter, just like he always would. But when the dust settled, the weirdest thing happened. People learned the truth about the shrinking technology and about me. It felt good to get the recognition that I had always wanted for all my life. Pete, Willow, Max, and Hoops tried to go back to being normal teenagers. Burgle has joined the Kids Do Science and Robotics Club. He's the mascot, I didn't tell you. I'm expecting big things from all of them. Life's getting back to normal around here. It's funny that the world can still seem so small. And no, I haven't come up with my next big invention, and I don't mind one bit either. Because when it comes down to it, all that really matters is that we make the most of the time that we have together.
Check Plus.